Okay, so we're gonna continue with section 2.401 of the canons of ethic. And let me zoom right in. In fact, let me just end it where we left it at before. So there is the ES, which are the ethical standards, just to remind you. So ES is an ethical standard. Um, and as you know, the way that they have it divided is they have a rule, an ethical standard, and it's kind of divided into three. So if we go back, so we have canons, ethical standards, and then a rule of conduct. And a canon is a broad principle. An ethical standard is a little bit more specific, and a rule is how to behave in relationship to that. So in section 2.4 is the ethical standard that says environmental equity and justice. Members should promote fairness, and that means AIA members, either AIA like architects, associate AIA, or AIA members. So environmental equity and justice members should promote fairness and safety in providing professional services and make reasonable efforts to advise their clients and employers of their obligations to the environment, including access to clean air, water, sunlight, and energy for all, sustainable production, extraction, transportation, and consumption practices, a built environment that equitably supports human health and well-being as is resistant to climate change, and restoring degraded or depleted natural resources. So that's like the ethical standard. Now let's go through the rule. So when performing, I'm gonna have this highlighter, and hopefully I can have a little color that I could use. Highlighter, property bar. Where is it? Oh, right here. Okay, so let's use a little color. When performing professional services, members shall make reasonable efforts to inform their clients of the potential environmental impacts or consequences the members reasonably believes may occur as a result of the work performed on behalf of the clients. I guess if you know by looking at something that you know that it will have negative repercussions, right? Consequences. As soon as you know it, you have to raise the flag about it. Say, hey, listen, this is not going to turn out to be good for the environment, right? So it's not going to be sustainable. It's not going to be clean. It's not going to be good. So that's how you will behave. And again, you have to let the client know about it. And then canon number 3, obligations to the client. Members should serve their clients competently and in a professional manner, and should exercise unprejudiced and unbiased judgment when performing all professional services. What do you guys mean by what do you think it means by competent, like being competent? Anybody?
Understanding your job or a task at hand.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how it is. Like you're well-rounded on that task, right? If you don't feel comfortable with it, then you shouldn't be doing it. You should be very, very, yeah, well-rounded. Competence. They define that right here. Members should serve their clients in a timely and competent manner. Well, that's the ethical standard. It doesn't really add much to anything. And then the rule. In performing professional services, members shall take into account applicable laws and regulations. Members may rely on the advice of other qualified persons as to the intent and meaning of such regulations. So in case like wetlands regulations, for instance, like architects are not like experts on it, but they may rely on persons who are like wetland scientists that are experts on that, so that they can sort of derive the meaning of what those regulations entail. So he's saying like you don't have to know it all, but at least have somebody that does know more about that, and they can inform you and your services. So rule 3.102, members shall undertake to perform professional services only when they, together with those whom they may engage as consultants, are qualified by education, training, or experience in the specific technical areas involved. Well, in general saying, if you've never done it, don't do it. But I don't think it's like that. It's like if you and anybody within your team hasn't done it, don't do it, right? Like if it's a project that you don't have, so because we every day get a project that we don't know anything about, but we do have people that do know something about it, either a structural engineer, mechanical engineer, plumbing engineer, or some even advisor, right? Somebody that can assist you as an advisor. Um, so that's when, if you don't have anybody within your repertoire to help you, you shouldn't get involved in it. That makes sense. Commentary. This rule is meant to ensure that members not undertake projects that are beyond their professional capacity. Like, for instance, if I was to be granted or given an airport project, I would not have an idea, not even a clue how to start. I would not know. So I would have to actually hire another firm maybe to assist me, or another architect to help me out that has done this type of projects. Why is that? Well, because at the end of the day, if I have never done it and it's such a complex project, I will be putting the health, safety, and welfare of the public at risk because I don't know what I'm doing. So if I never done a hospital, for instance, or if I've never done a skyscraper, I need to involve people that know how to engineer and design those type of buildings as part of my team. And that's common. We do that all the time where we work with other people that have done projects, even if we haven't, because that's the only way you can gain that experience. Nobody was born knowing how to do it. So members venturing into areas that require expertise they do not possess may obtain that expertise by additional education, training, or through the retention of consultants with the necessary expertise. That's right. You train yourself on that, educate yourself on that, or the last option, just hire a consultant that knows how to do it. Now, like I said, by no means it's telling people not to do those projects. It's just saying how you should go about it. Rules 3.103. Members shall not materially alter the scope or objective of a project without the client's consent. Sorry about that, guys. I'm a little tired. So 3.1. Like, so why is this even being said? I mean, it shouldn't even be said. Like if the client told you to do an addition that's 10 by 20, you shouldn't be doing an addition that's 50 by 50. If the client is telling you that they want 2 bedrooms, you don't just put 2 bedrooms and also add a master bathroom and a kitchen and all of that stuff. You should not alter the objective. Now, the other thing is, like, if the client gave you a very defined program and you have a recommendation regarding that program, you can state it to the client. Hey, I would actually think that you should do such and such, not necessarily just change it. Why is that, guys? Anybody? Why you shouldn't be changing the scope of work?
Because that would change the budget and we have to be comply with the contract that defines.
Yeah, in general, that would change the budget. But also, I mean, if you start changing the scope, then you're kind of cheating because you're then gonna start charging more money. And it's like, why are you charging me more money for something I didn't ask you for, right? And why are you incurring services that I didn't ask as a client? A client doesn't want to pay for things that they didn't want. It's the opposite of scope creep. I mean, actually, it is scope creep. You are creeping it yourself into the budget, into the project. So now I've worked with other architects, and sadly, by the way, if you hear somebody barking, that's or dog here at the office. We have a dog today. So there was this architect who, very talented architect. He wanted all his jobs to be award-winning projects, and like there are things that like the client doesn't want, that he starts designing, sketching, and having fun with it. And then I'm like, I have no idea why he's doing that. Like, why on earth are you doing that stuff that the client doesn't want and it's not gonna pay for and it's gonna cause trouble? In fact, he was squeezing it into the construction administration. Like, he didn't do it during construction documents. After the construction documents were issued and approved, and the client already approved the design, he would go talk to the contractor and start sketching things like, do this, do that, do this, do that. The contractor then began to actually charge for more money because, well, that wasn't on the initial drawings. Why are you doing that stuff? And the architect was actually like saying, don't tell the owner, don't tell anything. That's a minor change. It's not going to cause anything. But there weren't any minor changes. There were again, award-winning changes, like very detailed, very cool stuff. So there are people that get carried away with their designs, and then that can cause trouble, right? So for many reasons, you don't just start adding scope. I am kind of the dream killer here at the office when it comes to that. I make sure that the client gets exactly what they asked for and no more. And if there's more, they should pay for it. I mean, even to give him an extra rendering, I'll put a big thing, a watermark on the rendering, not included. A very gorgeous rendering. You got to pay for it. I can't just give it to you. I mean, it's business, right? So ES 3.2, conflict of interest. And that's part of that previous one, almost a little. Members should avoid conflicts of interest in their professional practices and fully disclose all unavoidable conflicts as they arise. An example may be that you're getting paid by the contractor on the side for recommending the contractor to this owner. That's wrong. Now, it is wrong if you don't disclose it. If they're paying you and you're biased, you just say, I am biased. I'm working with a contractor. I already know this guy. Nothing wrong with that. It is wrong when you deceive. Deception is horrible. You don't do that. Like even if I recommend contractors and those contractors want to give me a kickback, I will let the owners know, listen, those 4 contractors are giving me a percentage for recommending them. If I was to do that, we barely ever do that. And I mean, we don't just take handouts like that. But I'm saying if that's the case, say it to the owner. Say, listen, I'm recommending these guys. They give me a kickback. They're good. You know what I mean? So, and then at the end of the day, you know what that means? Just also is putting your neck on the line, because if they mess up, the owner's going to come back at you, and you can't wash your hands because you're being paid by the contractor. So you basically work for the contractor. So on that end, all right. Most of the time, I recommend people just not to get involved into getting kickback from contractors in any way, or nothing. Like, don't recommend a metal panel system that you're getting paid for, unless you're gonna tell them that paneling system, you're sponsoring that paneling system, right? It's like doctors. This happens more with doctors, where they're like, yeah, I highly recommend this pill, is the best. Well, they have to say, I am being paid by this company to say that this pill is gonna cure you. It's gonna make you feel very good, right? You have to get paid to do that. In fact, the company should insure you too, so that if something goes wrong, they don't come after you and sue you. So you have to disclose any conflict of interest. And the rule on that is a member shall not render professional services in the member's professional judgment could be affected by responsibilities to another project or person. I have a hard time with this situation because I'm an amicable kind of architect. I'm good with the contractor, with the owner, with the inspector. I want to find resolution among all parties. And sometimes it may look like I am not tough to the contractor, but it's not about being tough to the contractor. It's about, all of us having a compliant building. At the end of the day, the architects, I'm not signing the affidavit until it's like, well, listen, let's figure out a way that's cost effective for you to meet the code. Why? Well, because it's the benefit of everybody to meet the code, right? So make sure that it's not picking a side or another side. It's for the project. So always, if your judgment is gonna be affected, I've had moments like that, and at the end of the day, when I have a moment where my judgment is being affected by whichever, it might not even be money. It might be that I like that person. It might be that it's like Bernardo and we're friends, and I'm like, well, I'm friends with her, so I'm being affected. So I would always come back clean at the end and say, listen, let's do what's right. Like what's right is we need 2 bathrooms or we need 2 means of egress. We're not gonna play around with that, right? That's the code. Let's do it. And at the end, everybody's happy. People really love honesty and and clarity, like, because then later on it comes back, and that's when it's a problem. That's really when it's a problem later on. So if your judgment is being affected, just step away for a second, think about it, and then come back and say, well, I think the best way to do is this, or by the members' own interest. On interest may be that, for instance, I don't know if this will happen, but like a development, let's say somebody comes to me with a development, they hire me to be the architect for the development, and I design this thing super bizarrely wrong and expensive, wrong because it's too expensive, so that the owner kills the project, and then I come back and send somebody else and say, go buy that project from that guy. I can design it for half that price and you can make it profitable. Give me 10% of the cut. I mean, that sounds very like evil, Machiavellic, but that could be done, you know? So then your interest is influencing the design that you've already done. It actually happened in one way, not because we designed it wrong, but we designed this 2-family in Methuen. In Medford. It starts with M, that's what I remember. In Medford. And the client bought the property for about $730,000. It's a 2-family. We designed the renovation of it, and he already put in an offer. He hadn't purchased the building. It was just, he wanted to get moving on it. Then prices of lumber went up, everything went up. And he's like, well, I'm going to spend like $600,000 worth of money renovating this thing. I bought it for 730. Can I actually sell each of those units for 800 so that I can make a little bit of money, right? Because let's say 750 plus 600 worth of lumber, that's 1.3 million. Right? So 1.3 million, if he wanted to make money on that, he needs to at least make both of them be, 800,000 so that he can make 300,000. But there needs to be a contingency on that one. Long story short, he wanted to pull out of the deal. And I thought, well, let me see how many people I know who want to buy this project off of this guy and not have to spend 600,000 on the renovation. They probably could spend 150, 200. And they still can make a profit. Honestly, if I had money, I would have bought it. But this was something I learned afterwards. When I was designing it, I wasn't designing it wrong, so that it was $600,000 worth of lumber. I was designing it following the criteria. What this clause talks about is you somehow try to leverage the situation for your own personal interest. Now, I don't know why anybody, I mean, it may happen, right? It may happen. Now it would have looked wrong if I actually was the one that bought the development from him. That would have looked, again, doing it and showing that it happened for that reason is almost as bad. I don't know if that makes sense. Like if I was to actually buy it, it may have looked like I designed it wrong so that I can buy the development. So then you wouldn't want to do that, right? So you should probably walk away and be like, no, I'm not saving that deal. I have no interest in that. Why? Because then I'm showing that I did something, borderline unethical, right? So, so you wouldn't want. I was actually disappointed and sad that he couldn't develop it. It was such a nice project. It is such a nice project. So, but neither did I even have money. I could have partnered with him if I had the money, but I was like, no, I can't do it. So unless all of those who rely on the member's judgment consent after, again, now on that end, if there's consent, they say, listen, I am getting paid by, this company to give you that. You're good with it. Yes. Then you're good. It means you moved forward at your own risk. All right. Commentary. Let's read the commentary. So the commentary says this rule is intended to embrace the full range of situations that may present a member with a conflict between his interests or responsibilities and the interests of others. Those who are entitled to disclosure may include a client, owner, employer, contractor, or others who rely on or are affected by the member's professional decision. Now, on here, we have a lot of, I guess, power. And again, I always go back to Spider-Man. Every great power comes with a great responsibility. So whenever I design a project and I talk to building inspectors, as of right now, up to today, inspectors trust me. Why do they trust me? It's not just me. They trust architects. They trust architects more than they trust contractors because they know we're putting our neck on the line with the project. And they know that we're sworn to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. So whenever I talk to them, the tone is so much different than if a contractor was to call them. Like as soon as I say, this is our Fortuna from Full Design Architect, I'm the architect for the project. Their tone is like, hey, Fortuna, how's it going? Good. If I was like, oh, this is Jose Perez, the builder for such and such, they're like, what do you want? Is there inspection? It's happened like that. It's like, is anything wrong there? Do you need me to go for an inspection? Schedule an inspection. Go to the. They even send you to the portal now. Like, go to the portal. You don't need to talk to me. Like, I'm just making a scenario, but the tone I've picked up is different. Why is that? Because we're not bullshitting. When there is a need for an egress window on a bedroom, we tell them that they need an egress window. When there is a need for a smoke detector within a bedroom, we tell them that they need to put the smoke detector. When they need 2 means of egress, when they need tempered glass on those windows, we're not going to just let it whoa. They need tempered glass. So inspectors trust us. In fact, when an architect is involved in a project, even if it is a single family, they don't even go there that much. They don't even need to walk into that site so much. They're like, well, an architect already saw this. They sometimes even ask, who engineered that beam? Oh, yeah, such and such architect. Okay, that's it. I don't need to know more. Why? Because they're no engineers. They're not going to size it. They know somebody else is layers of trust. And they do say it to me. One hand watches the other. So one hand is watching the other hand. So we're kind of helping each other out. So now, why is that? Because we disclose any conflict of interest. And we, above all things, are going to make sure that we do what's right, So that's part of that, kind of here. A member who cannot appropriately communicate about a conflict directly with an affected person must take steps to ensure that disclosure is made by other means. Like if you just don't feel confident to say it, you could write it. You could put it on the drawings. You could let them know in some way. I haven't had many of those conflicts of interest situations. Not at all. In fact, when I do, I'm actually both the architect and the contractor, and they just know I am liable for everything. So it's like there's no conflict of interest. I am the one that's doing the construction and designing. So when acting by agreement of the parties as the independent interpreter of building contract documents and the judge of contract performance, members to render decisions impartially. So you guys remember that the AIA says you are the initial decision maker, right? On the AIA document, IDM. So that's what it's saying here. You got to be impartial and you got to render those decisions. Because sometimes we have, it should be a final decision. And it says that authority regarding aesthetics is final if you use the AIA documents. So, if we say that looks good, that looks good. That's it. Nobody should fight it. Now, that's if you use the AIA. And that's what NCAR wants you to know. Right? It doesn't matter how it happens out there. So this rule applies when the member, though paid by the owner and owing the owner loyalty, right? Because the owner pays us, and I like that they say it, is nonetheless required to act with impartiality in fulfilling the architect's professional responsibilities. It's just saying, if the owner's at fault on something, you got to tell him you are wrong. And I don't care that you pay me. You are wrong. I don't use those terms. I would say something more like, well, I think that there's another way of doing it. I wouldn't want to say that they're wrong. That's a fight. The moment you tell somebody that they're wrong, you're already picking a fight. But you can actually, impartially say that is, I think there's another most appropriate way of going about this. Same thing if it is the contractor. Now, but I like that they're saying you owe loyalty to the owner who pays you. He pays you, right? But even though he pays you, well, the sill of that window needs to be above 18 inches. Otherwise, it has to be tempered. And it has to have a rail in front of it, period. That's just the way it is. I actually go to the job site and I smile and I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, you guys installed it wrong. I'm gonna go through the code just because I have to, but it is owner, it is not right. So we gotta get, and they all freak out. Oh my goodness, the window, I already ordered it, it's gonna come tomorrow and blah blah blah. It's like, well, you gotta order a new one. That's it. Or put a rail. Well, there are like 25 of those. I'm like, well, put a rail in the 25 of them. A railing in front of it because it's not tempered. So that you're not delayed. It's gonna look stupid. It's like, well, it's better than me telling you not to have a window altogether and put siding and close the whole thing. Then that's worse. So that's that part. And then it says, then we go to ethical standard 3.3. Candor and truthfulness. It's all going hand by hand. Members should be candid and truthful in their professional communications and keep their clients reasonably informed about the client's project. Always inform the client. If you have any AIA question, any ARE question that, the answers are inform the client, inform the building inspector, inform the contractor, inform the client. You always tell the client what's going on. Always, always, always. So members shall not intentionally or recklessly mislead existing or prospective clients about the results that can be achieved through the use of the member services. This is a big one. I love it. My partner Marcos always makes me ensure that I don't use, words that we cannot back up, So I cannot say we are the best architects. That's like, no way. I cannot say you will have the best building because you hired us. What is the best building? There's no even way of defining it, So you cannot be using those terms. One, because you are exceeding your liability. Your what's the word, Miranda? Your standard of care, right? Miranda is here. She went to sleep. Miranda. So you're increasing your liability because you're saying things that you cannot. Your insurance company is never gonna back you up on that one, So you're done. So again, don't sell something. Don't oversell yourself either. You have to be very careful. How many of you have seen an advertisement online? An advertisement on the news, on the radio, on the TV of architects. Have you seen any?
A lot.
No. You know why? Because of that. We cannot be over promising and over saying things about our services. You would see attorneys doing it. You would see attorneys. You would see doctors doing that stuff. But you would not see architects doing advertisement like that. You just can't. In fact, we are actually going to be publishing some advertisement through a Dominican Junior Pepin, so the narrator of baseball for the Red Sox, and we're being very careful with what the message is going to be. Very, very careful. And I know Dominicans would like to exaggerate the truth. These guys are this and that. And I'm like, no. Just say it exactly how I wrote it. I am not Superman. We are not superheroes. We are normal people that happen to have a shop, that happen to do architecture just like any other architect would do it. And that's it. I try to make sure that we're not the best. We're not, things that you could say, you can state the facts. We finished all of our projects within their timeline. That's great.
Company.
If they have been, what is it, Abelis?
You could use the phrase award-winning.
Well, yeah, you are an award-winning firm. If you won an award, even one, you could give yourself an award and you can say you're an award-winning. It is a fact. It doesn't matter who gave it to you. You're an award-winning firm. So things like that you can say. You can say, we've succeeded at doing several, residential projects. You can state the fact. I can't say it any clearer than that. If it is a fact, it is a fact. Now, being the best is not a fact because you can never back that up. Never. Now, if you define the best, if you define the best and you say to us, the best architects will meet this criteria and we meet that criteria. That is your opinion. That is different. Right? Now, again, I don't want to borderline play it. I used to borderline play things before. I stay very far away from the borderline. People that are kind of like here, but not really. No. I'd rather stay in this side. So I am not the best. I am just reasonable and competent on doing architecture, just like any other architect would do it. Period. Okay. So then the other things I add is, we're a diverse firm. There are 9 countries are being represented here at Flow Design. That's a fact. Which increases the amount of diversity within our office and the diverse design repertoire we have. That's a fact, that can be backed up. Nor shall the members state that they can achieve results by means that violate applicable law or this code. You can't, well, on that end, we deal with illegal units almost every day where people want to be doing illegal units, illegal basements, illegal attics. Well, state it. You know what? I'm going to design this legally. And afterwards, you can do whatever you want with it, right? I'm going to put what legally I am supposed to do. And if you want to add a kitchen later, don't even call me about it. Just do it. I mean, I'm not even saying just do it. Just don't even tell me, right? So because we can't be doing that. That will be violating the code. That will be violating everything that we've signed up for. I always try, one thing I do, I always try to direct the customer or the client into how they could achieve what they want legally. So you want to add a kitchen to that attic? Yes. Well, this is a 2-family. Yes. Well, have you considered going through the zoning board of appeals and turning this into an in-law unit? No, because of blah, blah, blah. Well, like we could try it, as an additional service. I'll represent you. I don't guarantee we'll get it, but let's try it. And then if you fail it, you can go ahead and do whatever, but at least try it the right way. And then, because plan A should be the correct way. Plan B should be, something else. Now, thank God that's changing a lot, because Salem just passed the accessory dwelling unit. There's a lot of bylaws for accessory dwelling units being pushed out. So that's another thing. So you could even tell people, a lot of towns have approved the accessory dwelling unit bylaw. So eventually, maybe your property will be, you will be able to have an accessory unit. Oh, really? Yeah, that's it. Commentary. This rule is meant to preclude dishonest, reckless, or illegal representations by a member, either in the course of soliciting a client or during performance. And I don't do any of that stuff. I mean, you can't be lying. I used to sugarcoat a flow a lot too. I don't sugarcoat it anymore. I mean, we are who we are. Before it was because I only had architectural work from the BAC, from my school, on my website. So I had to say, well, we can do, I had to oversell it. Now I don't need to. We have many projects. So ES 3.4, ethical standard, confidentiality. This is very important. Members should safeguard the trust placed in them by their clients. That's a general statement. Members should not knowingly disclose information that would adversely affect their client, or that they have been asked to maintain in confidence except as otherwise allowed or required by this code or applicable law. Now, there's one that says if the client is doing something illegal, you're supposed to say it, So remember when we said like that you shall not be designing, that's another one, by the way, Amanda, you should probably watch this video, that you should not design a place for like, what is it, like to hurt people? Like electric chairs place or whatever. You're not supposed to design a prison or anything like that to hurt people. So if you know that you're doing that, then you're violating this code. Now, if you're asked to disclose this, if you are to design a illegal marijuana planting facility, right, and it's illegal and you know about it, first you're already violating that law. But then if you get subpoenaed to talk and you don't talk about it, then you're violating the law twice. Because one, you should have never done it, and two, you got to cooperate with the law. So you can't, you're hiding it twice. And I make up these bizarre examples. It doesn't happen. I have never heard of an architect doing any of that. So, but all right. So commentary. To encourage the full and open exchange of information necessary for a successful professional relationship, members must recognize, by the way, they use members as capital because it's a very important thing, must recognize and respect the sensitive nature of confidential client communication. Now, there are things that you shall not disclose that are not necessarily illegal. I mean, for instance, if Tesla was to hire me to do their new headquarters, right? Like it's private. They say it's non-disclosure agreement. All of these drawings are not, like, you can't disclose it in any way, shape, or form. Why? Well, because Tesla's a publicly traded company. Like, their stock may go up or down depending on what I say and how I say it. In fact, if any of you have been trading, they actually make you answer, have you been involved with any of these companies or any of the boards of any of these companies? Why? Because then that's called inside trading. You can't do that. It's illegal, right? So same thing in here. If you're designing something for Tesla or for Uber or for whatever, right? And you start disclosing all this stuff that's private, it may adversely jeopardize the company. And let's say you're being hired by Lyft on the other side, which is a competitor, that goes back to this. You have to disclose any bias or any confidentiality problems you may have. All right. So But again, but this code of ethics also says that you in the AIA contract will say that you are entitled to promote your own work. So you can promote your own work, you own the work, So it's borderline, right? So if it is something very specific to the company, you can't. But if it's just specific to your design, then you can definitely do that. Must recognize and respect the sensitive nature of confidential client communications because the law does not recognize an architect-client privilege. There is no architect-client privilege. Like for instance, there is the attorney-client privilege, right? So the attorney can't represent you and talk for you, but the law does not have such a thing for architect and client. However, the rule permits a member to reveal a confidence when a failure to do so would be unlawful or contrary to another ethical duty imposed by this code. So there is a point in which you have to disclose it, right? You must disclose it. So then we go to the next canon 4, obligations to the profession. Members shall uphold the integrity and dignity of the profession. Such a big canon, right? And then the ethical standard says honesty and fairness. Members should pursue their professional activities with honesty and fairness. Pretty good. Rule 4.101. Members having substantial information which leads to a reasonable belief that another member has committed a violation of this code, which raises a serious question as to that member's honesty, trustworthiness, or fitness as a member, shall file a complaint with the National Ethics Council. Well, you would say, well, that's being a snitch. Snitches get stitches. No, not really. At the end of the day, we're not here like, I mean, you guys are all my peers and all of you will be licensed, but I'm not like, I didn't even know you would exist in my life. I'm here for the profession. I'm here because I love architecture. I'm here because I want to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. I'm not here to make friends. So if you're doing something unethical or wrong, I have to report you, right? So prior to reporting you, what I would do personally, I would talk to you and say, well, listen, we're buddies. We'll go all the way back. I think that what you're doing right now is not cool. How about doing it this way? How about doing it that way? Now, I would never even want to threaten you to report you. But if I get to the point where I have to, right? I would say that, right? So it's just wrong. I mean, I understand that. Like sometimes, let's say it's a family member that's also an architect. You're like, wow, that's my uncle, and my uncle's doing something illegal and wrong. I mean, it's like, well, are you for your uncle? Or are you for the truth? Are you for the betterment of society? Are you for the betterment of the profession? That's tough, right? I mean, that's kind of like, what will you do? That's tough. But the first thing is having a very open conversation with that person. Sometimes the best is not knowing about it. I mean, that's the best. If you don't know that somebody's doing something wrong, that's even better, because then you don't have to deal with a dilemma. All right. So often only an architect can recognize that the behavior of another architect possesses a serious question as to that other's architect integrity. It's true. I mean, but then I will go back to what, the Russian president said, it takes one to know one. So it's like, how do you know a bad person? Well, it takes a bad one to know one. But in this case, that's not the point. It takes one good architect would know when another one isn't doing something right. That's not ethical, right? So in fact, in court, an architect would actually be summoned to talk. Like, what do you think? What do you think about that? All right. In those circumstances, the duty to the professional's calling requires that a complaint be filed. In most jurisdictions, a complaint that invokes professional standards is protected from a libel or slander action if the complaint was made in good faith. If in doubt, a member should seek counsel before reporting on another under this rule. Well, because they also may look like that's a competing architect and you have a bias towards, putting them down and things like that, right? It is a nasty, like, competitive environment sometimes, right? It gets nasty. Actually, in architecture, it doesn't get that nasty. More with contractors, but in architecture, we're all cool. I mean, there's more than enough work for everybody, so I don't think we need to do anything. Enforcement of Rule 4.101 refers to and supports enforcement of the rules. A violation of 4.101 cannot be established without proof of a pertinent violation of at least one other rule. So this is setting the standard. So like you found one flaw, you got to back it up with another flaw in order, or another violation in order for it to be considered, right? So for it to rise to the level of a violation, it's got to be at least two. Rule 4.102, members shall not sign or seal drawings, specification, reports, or other professional work for which they do not have responsible control. Okay, so everything that I put my seal on personally, I have professional control, responsible control. If I don't, I wouldn't put it. How do you establish responsible control? Well, if that person has been trained by you, if that person is somebody that you oversee their work on a consistent basis, it's not a one-off, you've never met them before, things like that. So that's, if they follow standards, it can even be a checklist that you've created. Follow this checklist, do these, I have my own rules. I have stamped drawings from other peers. Yeah, but those peers are trained by me. They either have done a class with me or gone through things with me. They're not just somebody I met at a bar and I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll stamp it. Go. No, it's not like that, So, and we talk and we go through the drawings and we make sure everything looks good. And I give them a hard time the first few times. And then after that, I see that they get it and I don't have to give them a hard time anymore. And if they don't meet my standards, I don't ever work with them. I don't ever talk to them, So there are many people that I've never, they don't ever call me again because I made it clear I'm not doing something wrong. Commentary. And it's not my standard practice, it's not like 100 people. It's like probably 1 or 2 people. So responsible control means the degree of knowledge and supervision ordinarily required by the professional standard of care with respect to the work of licensed consultants. Members may sign or seal such work if they have reviewed it, there you go, coordinated its preparation, there you go, or intend to be responsible for its adequacy. Okay. Now, most of the time, the people I work with, and it happens from time to time, it may be a student of mine, right, that I've done work with. It may be also someone that, like somebody that I actually want to have here full-time at Flow working with us at my office. But unfortunately, we don't have enough work for them or we don't have enough staff. So we collaborate. They don't work for me, they work with me, right? So it's different, right? So there are people that get to that level that we work together. But it says it here. And this is a question. You get questions on this on the AREs for sure about when you should be stamping drawings. So members speaking in their professional capacity shall not only make false statements of material fact. You can't lie. That's what he's saying. This rule applies to statements in all professional contexts, including applications for licensure and AIA membership. Okay. Yes, a standard, ethical standard 4.2, dignity and integrity. Members should strive through their actions to promote the dignity and integrity of the profession and to ensure that their representatives and employees conform their conduct to this code. So I guess I always have something to say about everything. So there was this, this team member here from Flow who went to a site visit, met with a client. The client offered him a tip, right? Like offer him money, like, hey, you're doing a great job, here's the money. He came back to me and said, well, the client forced me, he gave me this, he gave it to me. And we overall do not accept tips from any clients. We don't accept any money. Why? Well, that's already biased, right? Like that's already making this kid have a personal interest. It shouldn't be his personal interest, it should be the office interest, right? In relationship to our standards. But I love the fact that that person came to me and told me about it, and I said, absolutely, no, don't worry about it. Now in the future, let them know that there are other ways in which they can compensate you. One, write a review about my service on Google, right? That helps the office. Like say, such and such, that's such a great job, I was so thankful, all good, right? So give us more work. I mean, that's great. If you like our services, give us more work, because that person's already getting paid for his time, So if it was something he was doing on his spare time, again, that would be also a conflict of interest. I don't want anybody from our office working with our clients outside of the office time. That's a no-no. But not on that point, I love that type of behavior, right? There are a lot of people here. I mean, everybody here at Flow so far. They would tell you, like, there've been clients that have come to them and have wanted to hire them outside under the table, like, let me pay you. And they come to me and say, well, such and such how it happened. I told them, no, you got to talk to the boss. I work Monday to Friday, 9:30 to 9 o'clock to 5:30. That's how we do work. That has to do with the dignity and integrity. Everybody should have that dignity and integrity. I actually have a hard time, like everybody here at the office, I know them very well, and I study them, and I question myself with them every day, how trustworthy they are. Now, for one reason, this is a personal one. I want to know who my replacement is going to be when I want to get out of here. Who is going to be running the office, who's going to be running the show. And they should all be able to fit that criteria. If the people you work with, you don't respect them and love them enough that they could actually be your replacement, you should probably question why you're working with them. They should really, and that's just a personal one. That's a personal one right there. So on that end, I'm always looking at everybody's talent and the way that everybody acts. When I see somebody acting too sneaky, when I see somebody that's too smart, because guess what? Prisons are full of people that thought they were smarter than everybody else. That's who is in prison right now. Either they're wrong, but they probably weren't, and they thought they were smarter than everybody else, right? So on this point, I'm gonna stress it. Whenever I meet somebody that's a little too smart, and too smart is like people that, like, I don't even know how to explain it, but you know it when you see it. They wanna think a little too much ahead of the game. They're already looking for work on their own. They're already freelancing and doing things and doing this, and the way they approach the clients and the way that they do things, you're like, I don't think so, and that's concerning. And I don't like to work with people that I feel like that I can't sleep at night. Yeah. I mean, I empower everybody here at Flow to eventually open their own office, but don't open it while you're working with Flow. Talk to me, and then we'll figure out how to do a transition. We may even collaborate, right? So just be open about that stuff, right? I mean, how do you branch off? That's another point. That's a whole lecture. How do you branch out of one office and walk away good? Most people don't do it right. Most people, I mean, in most businesses that I've seen, some people branch off and open their own thing, and they're like enemies for life with the other firm. That's not good. That's not cool. You have to leave your door open. So on that end, whenever I see somebody too sneaky, too smart, that want to be doing jobs on their own and just getting way over their heads, I'm like, not cool. Not cool. So rule 4.201, members shall not make misleading, deceptive, or false statements or claim about their professional qualification, experience, or performance, and shall accurately state the scope and nature of the responsibility in connection with the work of which they are claiming credit. So this is important. Credit. Don't portray yourself as a principal or project architect when you weren't a project architect. You were doing wall sections for that project, period. That's all you were doing. You were doing renderings for that project. That's all you were doing. All right. So, again, I know, like, when I opened Flow, I didn't have a whole lot. It was like I had nothing. I had only renderings and sketches. And how would I start getting clients? I mean, that was difficult, but I didn't go there and start saying I've done towers and I've done buildings and I've done this. I would say I've been involved in portions of projects like this, but by no means was I leading them. By no means was I the project architect. No, So, and honesty does get you far, because my first, one of my most complex first projects was a dental office. He had about 10 chairs or so, 12 chairs. And the client was like, oh, I'm glad you told me that. That's great. I will show you how to do it. And I will connect you with the consultants that I do work with, and they're going to teach you how to do it. Now I feel pretty good doing the dental offices, but I was honest. And I said, and I will charge you a little less because of that comfort zone that I don't have, right? It won't be zero, but But still, commentary. This rule is meant to prevent members from claiming or implying credit for work which they did not do, misleading others and denying other participants in a project their proper share of credit. We used to in our website have a work from other architects. I actually just took it out. And the work said in collaboration with such and such architect. I don't have any anymore, I don't think. But there was a few police stations we did, the architect, we did the construction documents for under another architect, a few fire station, but now we don't have it. But we used to say it. We used to say it right here. Like we would have the picture and say in collaboration with such and such. Now we don't need to anymore. So we're good. You know, we don't need to do that. So on your end, you know, represent your work appropriately. You know, what did you do? How do you do it? You know, and I know the beginnings are tough. That's why design competitions are good. Partnering with other architects is good. Other architects are your best bet to start getting work from. You know, that's like amazing. You know, so don't have architects seeing you as a threat. Have architects seeing you as an asset and as a resource. Like Bernarda knows I'm not gonna go after her clients. Never. Why would I do that? Right? Like we're working together. That's that person. In fact, a client called me and I called her. And I said, well, she called me. She had my number from the title. She actually this happened, right? That client, I think it was a client that was, and I said, well, you should call Bernarda. And then I called you and I said, Bernarda. And then, well, I'm not gonna get into the details, but long story short, you know, Bernarda proceeded and finalized the project and did what she needed to do. And that was great. But they called me and I was like, no, I can't do that, you know. And I've had multiple people. Last week, another client called me. I was referred by the contractor to do the drawings for that client. The contractor went a-hole, gone. I don't know who he is. And I said, well, and he's like, well, why haven't you done the drawings? And I'm like, well, you didn't hire me. The contractor hired me. And the contractor never gave me a notice to proceed. So I never did it. He's like, well, you should have done it. I'm like, I didn't. First of all, nobody signed the contract. Second of all, the contract wasn't issued to you. It was issued to the contractor. And third, if you want me to do the project for you now that the contractor is out, and I don't know nothing about him, I try to contact him. I can write you a contract and I can send it to you now, you know? Well, because again, we're not just gonna not take the business. Like if after months of, you know, if I would have called Bernarda 3 weeks in a row and she didn't answer, I'll be like, Bernarda, you know, I took the project because I wasn't gonna let anybody else take it. You know, at the end of the day, it will be worse. And you know, and a little gift card to Bernarda would be nice. Right. So, but that's the point. So, you know, but have other architects are your partners in this. I mean, most of our furniture here at Flow, like came from other architects that gave it to us, or printer came from other architects. So like, because we're not taking people's work and being sneaky and stealing clients and things like that. Now, I'm gonna be open about one thing though. There was a person I used to work for that after I learned over the years, I mean, early on, I noticed something was off with that person. They were bad. They were just bad. They shouldn't be licensed, honestly. I'm sorry, but they shouldn't. So I've had to actually get involved in projects with that person so that the clients don't suffer. And I even disclose and I say, listen, you're working with this person. It is what it is. I'm gonna try to get you from point A to point B. Don't worry about the money. You know, I'm just helping out. But sometimes I wish they even came to me prior. Like I wish they didn't even talk to that other professional because they're just doing very, very bad work, you know? So it gets very tough, you know, because one, you don't want to report the other person because you don't want to be snitch. But at the same time, I mean, all I do is try to help him out, you know? Albeli, you know who I'm talking about. Albeli.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking
Oh
about.
my goodness. I mean, every project is bad. And I'm like, what can I do? You know, so I try to help out. It's tough. I end up losing time and money, but it's like, you know, I don't want to steal the client, but at the same time, the client's gonna end up paying 4 times the price because it's gonna be wrong. So it's just tough. commentary. What constitutes reasonable efforts under this rule is a common sense matter, as it makes sense to ensure that those over whom the architect exercises supervision be made generally aware of the code. It can also make sense to bring a particular provision to the attention of a particular employee when a situation is present which might give rise to a violation. So this is just saying, how do you go about it if you see somebody doing something? Well, you even bring this up and say, well, listen. Now, again, this is only for members of the AIA. So, I mean, you can apply it. You know, you can be open to apply it. This is all good stuff. But like, I can't report somebody who isn't a member. Like if Amanda is not an associate AIA, I can't report her, you know. I would actually be able to report her to the licensing board of the state if she was violating, let's say if she was using the term architect on her drawings, right, and things like that. Like that's a violation. But that's not a violation of the AIA. It will be a violation of the Massachusetts codes and Massachusetts law. All right. So enforcement of Rule 4.202 refers to and supports enforcement of other rules. A violation of Rule 4.202 cannot be established without proof of a pertinent violation of at least one other rule. Okay, that's general talk. Then we got kind of number 8, obligations to colleagues. Here you go. So there is a section for that. Members should respect the rights and acknowledge the professional aspirations and contributions of their colleagues. So it's just give credit where credit's due. There are some architects that are kicking ass out there. They're really good. You should say it. You should say, you know, they're really, I like their work. We all have our people that we're fans of, right? So that's stuff like that. I always mention one architect. Paul Lucas is doing amazing stuff. Paul Lucas Architecture, if you guys can look it up, he does very, very, like, he's like Rem Koolhaas on a mini scale. So I say it, he does very good stuff. He does very sustainable projects, very beautiful sustainable projects. I give credit. Now, I don't give it if I'm not being asked, right? Like why? Like I'm not kicking, I'm not giving more points to my competition. But if I have to talk about it, I give it. Professional environment. So members should provide their colleagues and employees with a fair and equitable working environment, compensate them fairly, and facilitate their professional development. Huge, huge. So here at Flow, what do? So we have flow thinking. It's called flow thinking, or flow trainings. It happens every other Wednesday, and we train people on anything that we're thinking about. You know, it's either how to calculate a beam, either how to do anything. So that's part of continuing the professional development. Now, the NCARB hours, well, today we had a meeting, all of us, everybody here at the office, going through how to submit the hours, how to apply, how to open your NCARB record and things like that. And we made sure that everybody was on the same page. Why? Because we want people to be licensed. One person here at Flow told me, well, I don't see any value of being licensed. Somebody told me there isn't any value. And I was really upset. I was really upset. I was like, oh, there is a lot of value, you know. And they were saying, well, here at Flow, I'm like, yeah, like, again, who is my replacement? If you're not licensed, you can't be my replacement, you know. So you do get a raise. Anybody here who is licensed gets a raise. Like, that's it, you know, no questions asked. So there is a lot of stuff, right? So we put, you know, we guide them, these ARE classes, train them. Not everybody's joining the sessions from Flow, but that's part of this ethical standard. Rule: members shall treat their colleagues and employees with mutual respect and provide an equitable working environment. Great, well, you know, so whatever that means. Ethical standard 5.2, intern and professional development. So that's part of that. Members should recognize and fulfill their obligation to nurture fellow professionals as they progress through all stages of their career, beginning with professional education in the academy, progressing through internship and continuing through their career. Exactly what I'm doing right now. That's part of that. You know, we got to, you know, ensure that people make it to the touchdown zone. Then we go through members who have agreed to work with individuals engaged in their architectural internship program or an experience requirement for licensure shall reasonably assist in proper and timely documentation in accordance with that program. So today we were all documenting hours. A lot of people had lost a lot of their credits because they didn't do it within the 6-month period. So they got 50% credit. But we trained them. I actually have that on YouTube. You guys could even watch it too, I think. So that's in there. Ethical standard 5.3, professional recognition. Members should build their professional reputation on the merits of their own service and performance, and to recognize and give credit to others for the professional work they have performed. I give credit every single time to everyone who have done any work with us. We always do that. And we even give awards, like on Christmas, we gave awards to everybody here at Flow for something that they were particularly good at. Everybody got an award, either existing conditions, 3D modeling, meetings. Some people that actually just rose to the occasion where I was on a tight spot and they jumped in and help out. And I'm like, oh, that was nice. They didn't have to do that. I wasn't going to fire them if they didn't help. It was, they helped out. So that's that. But also like recognizing other people. Like I try, to give, Kevin Greenlee, like he does this app that we all have access to thanks to him. I give credit to him. I text him. I mean, the guy might think I'm in love with him because I tell him it's great stuff you're doing, that's really nice. That's really good. So things like that. Members shall recognize and respect the professional contributions of their employees, employer, professional colleagues, and business associates. So every project that I post on Instagram, I always give credit to who did it. Always, 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 always. So on our Instagram, you will see Yvonne, you will see Igo, you will see whoever is leading that job, I give him credit. And our thing right there, Julio Gutierrez, I always give him credit. I put foreign architect because it's licensed in Mexico. So I put foreign architect. You are allowed to use the term foreign architect. I want to give him credit for it because he designed it. He designs a lot of our projects. So he always does this a flow thing, but I give it back. It's Julio. So rule 5.302, members leaving a firm shall not, this is a good one, shall not, without the permission of employers or partner, take designs, drawing, data, reports, notes, or other material relating to the firm's work, whether or not performed by the member. Right? That's it. You can ask for it. Abeli has asked for things like Abeli asked me like templates for how to write a proposal. Remember Abeli's things like that. That's good to ask. Abeli's used to work here, guys. That's why. So, she asked. She didn't just steal it or take it away or whatever. So she asked, and what do I do? Well, guess what it says? A member shall not unreasonably withhold permission from a departing employee or partner to take copies of designs, drawings, data, reports, notes, or other material relating to work performed by the employee or partner that are not confidential. If it wasn't confidential, you got to give it to them, period. So I give it. I have no problem with that. Honestly, I want to see all of the portfolios of everybody that has ever worked at Flow showing Flow's work. It comes back to us at the end of the day. So it's like, great, show it. Just give proper credit. Like you weren't a principal, you weren't a project architect, you were a designer, just give. A member may impose reasonable conditions, such as the payment of copyright costs. That could be done. I could say, well, listen, you're going to take these drawings with you, but I'm going to have you pay a copyright cost. That's okay. On the right of departing persons to take copies of the work. That's even better. In fact, the person departing should be happy to pay that copyright fee because that's their card that they've done it legally and they've done it correctly, right? So, well, I have these drawings, I have this, I have that, I pay for it, great. You're good. Now, why would I ask, let's say, Albelis to grab one of our projects, and I'll give her to her and ask for a copyright? Well, because it is an instrument of service. Remember that? So those are instruments of service. In fact, a lot of people have wanted to work with Flow, and we've given them models and we've purged everything out of the model. Why? I'll tell you. We have a lot of value in those models. I work on those models all the time, all day, all week. We improve them, we make them better, we do a lot of things. I mean, it's like Tesla giving you their prototype for their electric cars. That's how valuable that is. So I don't give it. If I do, I would want people to pay a copyright payment. There are consultants where we give it to, but we already have an agreement. Like there's an agreement established in place. So obligations to the environment. So this is the number 6, and I'm almost done. we're going to continue next week or tomorrow maybe. Canon number 6, obligations to the environment. Members should, recognize and acknowledge the professional responsibilities they have to promote sustainable design and development in the natural and built environments, and to implement energy and resource conscious design. I mean, we know there are values that go into the walls, there are values that go into the roofs. We push that. We want to, design, taking into consideration, energy and all that stuff. So that canon is very good. I disclose it too. When people come to me, it's like, oh, are you good with sustainable design? I'm like, not only is it that I am good, I'm mandated to design sustainably by my code, right? So members should set ambitious performance goals for greenhouse gas emissions reduction with their clients for each project. We haven't pushed it though a whole lot, because we're in a market economy, right? It's all about money. It's all about the bottom line. So that's why we need to educate ourselves so that we can promote energy conservation. For instance, like knowing that closed cell and open cell insulation is a lot better than bad insulation, and that it pays itself back within a certain amount of years. If you didn't know that, then you can't sell it. You can't push it, right? So you got to know that. Water use. One thing I learned, whenever we don't specify toilets a whole lot and faucets a whole lot. But there's some faucets that are more water efficient than others. And they have a different value for how much gallons of water they do. The toilet, how much they push. And like, I didn't think about that until I had to really pick one. And I was like, well, I looked at all the toilets and all the faucets, and I started saying, from here on, we're only going to put in our models these faucets. And if they want to do something else, then great. But we're already pushing for sustainable, water use, right? Efficiency. So members should optimize. Another thing too, and I'm gonna probably put this on my agenda for Flow. We put a whole lot of lights in our RCPs. I'm like, we don't need that many lights. Why? So it's because the designer, is putting the tiles and it looks good and whatever. It's like, no. A room with 8 lights, Jesus, you could do it with 4. Like you could even do it with 3, like figure out a way of doing it so that it's sustainable. And if there are LEDs, I even go into what LEDs are they going to be, how, what's the K value, what's all of that stuff. Why? To optimize it, we don't want to just deplete it, building materials. Members should select and use, I don't think I read the previous one. Members should optimize water conservation in each project to reduce water use and protect water supply, water quality, and watershed resources. So how do you do that? The watershed resources, I even do it promoting pavable pavers instead of like solid asphalt on the parking lots. That's a way. There are a lot of ways of how to push for good use of water. Building materials. Members should select and use building materials to minimize exposure to toxins and pollutants in the environment, to promote environmental and human health, and to reduce waste and pollution. Great. That's really good. Ecosystems. Members should consider with their clients the impact of each project on the natural habitat and ecosystem to promote environmental and human health. Well, in this case, it's like dealing with wetlands and things like that, like understanding that whatever we do has an impact. And it's not that we can't build within a certain amount of yards, although that's the case of wetlands. But if we were to actually showcase a very respectful plan of attack, a very, very considerate way of doing it, the board of the Conservation Commission, will actually approve it. Most of the time they do, because they're not just against development. They're against development that does not respect habitat and ecosystems, right? So, and how do you promote that? Well, you had to go to the site, walk it around, go on the summer, go on the spring, study it, understand it. I mean, not many people do this. That's why we hire, environmental scientists to do it. But honestly, by the way, an environmental scientist could be anybody who has a background in biology and has taken some environmental classes. I actually have done all of those. So you could do that, but you have to follow the scientific methods, right, and do all that stuff properly and prove it. So that's just making the point that if you're gonna do a project, not just the projects that have like wetlands, you should do it. You should try to do it with every project, like what's going on within the ecosystems, right? Climate change. Members should incorporate adaptation strategies with their clients to anticipate extreme weather events and minimize adverse effects on the environment, economy, and public health. So there are a lot of things when we're developing projects, something that we just picked up. We were doing the parking, and when we were doing the parking, you know, we were counting for the minimum amount of parking spots, and we were looking at this thing, and we're like, well, where are you gonna put the snow? I don't know. Where is the snowmobile that's gonna take the snow out, the trucks, the plow, gonna get in and get out? How are you gonna move through that? I mean, that you would say, well, has anything to do with climate change? Yeah, it has to do with being aware that the climate changes, right? You know, well, if it's in the fall, okay, how are you gonna be cleaning the leaves from all of these trees that fall down? How are you gonna treat that? How are you gonna take care of that? Okay. So if you're promoting plants and like a green space, you know, have you allowed for proper water for those things? You know, like, is it seasonal? Like, how you, all of that stuff, it's becoming aware of climate change. You know, one might think that, yeah, there is a lot to deal with in design and architecture. Yes. But the moment you get past that and keep going, your brain gets used to it. Like, we know we have to deal with all of that stuff. All right. So, and then rule 6.5.01 says members shall consider their clients, with their clients, the environmental effects of their project decisions. And with that being said, I'm going to end it here, guys. And we're going to continue tomorrow with more project management related items. Thank you so much. You can watch these, replay it, like it, subscribe, and have fun.